everybody. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. We've got a really interesting topic today. So I can see that Anna's over in China. She's joining us. Hello, Anna. Great to see you. We've also got Gillian and we've got Tegan. Hey, Tegan and Gillian. So we'll have a bit of interaction towards the end. So welcome, ladies. Hopefully we'll get a few more. If not, we will kick off fairly soon. But welcome and thank you for joining us. So today's Lunch and Learn is all around the virtual advantage. So we've got some amazing presenters, Ingrid and Angela Revell. They're going to talk to us about what it's like helping organisations or businesses or entrepreneurs work remotely, because it's pretty much a given that most of us are working remotely. Hey, I am as well. So I know what it's like. It's all about, well, how do you actually get everything done and use, the best use of your time. It's also about understanding, and they're going to talk to us about what the benefits that come with engaging virtual support. What are the best strategies for finding, onboarding and working successfully with virtual assistants and also remote team members. So Ingrid and Angela run together the VA Institute and Find a VA. And so they're going to tell us all the secrets in the background of what it's like being a VA, how it works, what the traits are of a superstar VA and what you should be looking for, and how to get them on. So Ingrid's coming from her home office on the beautiful mid-north coast of New South Wales. She started her career in the remote working space as a virtual assistant in 2008. Within 2 years, she'd grown her business to include managing and overseeing a team of VAs, and then she's gone on to forge a very successful VA business. Now, Angela Revell is in a beautiful seaside village of Penguin in Tasmania. And has a business background that includes over 20 years providing virtual assistance in both the technical and administrative space. And so they connected in 2019, and Angela has joined the team and providing some technical, sort of her technical expertise, but it wasn't long before the broad skills were utilised in other parts of the company. So Angela's now come on as the Global Operations Manager. So I'm going to turn over to both of our ladies and going to get them to give us the secrets. In the meantime, if you've got any questions, please add them to the chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on that. We're also recording today's session so that you can come back and listen again if you need to. We'll send that out via an EDM a bit later, probably early next week. But thank you all for joining. In the meantime, just pop yourselves on mute, so just so that we don't get any feedback. But if you do have questions, pop them into the chat box and then I will make sure that we've got some time at the end. Otherwise, over to you, Ingrid and Angela, and I'll let you run the show.
Thank you. And I'll just switch on my shared screen. So just 1 minute. And we're all good. So you can all see that? Great. All righty. So welcome to our presentation. Such a great introduction, Kirsten. I don't feel like I need to say too much more. We're actually going to discuss what we term the virtual advantage. Together, we're going to be lifting the lid on virtual assistants, all things virtual, virtual teams, and how that can sort of work, or how your businesses can actually interact and make sure that you sort of start the relationship really, really well by incorporating some great strategies that we've certainly used over the years. It is an exciting topic about an industry that is emerging. It's still emerging. We've seen a lot of growth. One that we believe is a solution for many women in particular, where we have a lot of women in the virtual assistant industry, but there obviously are a lot of a diversity across the board, really. But the women who come into our industry have built up many years of experience in traditional employment. So they can actually see this as a pathway for themselves in running a small business from home that actually affords them the benefits of flexibility and freedom, basically. How great is it to operate from home? And employment, unfortunately, at this point, we have a lot of people talking about employment stopped delivering that. And there's, you know, big CEOs saying, come back to the office. You can no longer work from home. So, you know, you've got to start to wonder. So as Kirsten said, any questions, just pop them into the chat. Ange and I will be happy to address them at the end of the presentation. If there's something really pressing, Kirsten, you feel like you need to interrupt, just please do. So, Ange, if you want to start with you, I've talked enough now in the first slide. You get going.
Okay. So welcome everyone. Ingrid's had a fantastic introduction in for us. So just a little bit about us. Now we don't really have much to share for this because Kirsten was so fantastic on sharing everything that I think we've told you our whole story. But ultimately, I've been around for, I like to joke and say I've been around for 150 years in the remote support space. But it has been just a couple of decades. So ultimately started in the technology space, very quickly identified that I had skills to assist in the micro and small and medium business area as well. And eventually found this amazing word, because I always thought it was called remote support, and then I found this amazing word called virtual assisting many years later, and connected with Ingrid and had the opportunity to come across and work with her in the VA Institute. And I have now joined her as co-director in the business, and every day we love it. We get to change people's lives every day, and you know we can't say much more than that. So, Ingrid, would you like to share?
Yeah, so, you know, just to add a little bit more there, VA Institute was actually born out of my understanding of the industry as a whole. So I launched VA Institute in 2017. I've written 3 books now on the topic of virtual assisting. So, you know, it definitely is, it's a wonderful industry, but it's one that a lot of people come out of an institutionalized background. And so what we find is they need the help and support to get set up as business owners, but they definitely have the skills to get started. So, you know, that's what we do at VA Institute. We've since 2017, we have trained well over 1,000 individuals to help them get launched in their VA business and provided the ongoing support too. We also developed Find a VA, and it really was just one of those things that, you know, we had VAs coming through, getting set up, and they were like, okay, you know, we need to find clients. And so it was a perfect opportunity for us to actually allow potential clients to come through a resource where we could direct them to quality certified, really well set up, professional, insured virtual assistants. So that's where Find a VA really came into being. And now it's a really great resource for all our graduates and many others within the industry too, I would say. So I think that's about it on that. Did you have anything else to add? That's pretty good.
No, I think you've covered it fantastically. So how about we talk about what we're going to cover in this session?
Yes.
Okay, so do you want me to go?
You go first, yeah.
Okay, so this is what we'll cover during this session. So number one, we're going to talk about defining the virtual industry. So we're going to start by defining the virtual industry as we know it. This is our experience based on our combined 30-something years operating in the virtual industry. And now with the added experience of, as Ingrid said, working with over 1,000 startup VAs and to get them successfully launched. So we also often discuss the virtual advantage, and we refer this to the virtual advantage. So you'll hear us say this, which really is all about the benefits that businesses can experience and engage with the services of the VAs. We're then going to go on to number 3, traits of a superstar VAs and contractors. So all of us want the perfect VA or freelancer team member. So we're going to dig into what we believe are the key features or traits of that superstar VA and what they'll be able to demonstrate. So number 4, top tips to find and onboard the right person for your business. So many business owners feel out of their depth when it comes to finding and onboarding these VAs or virtual freelancers. So where do you begin? How do you even find these VAs? What are the best way to onboard your virtual team member successfully? We're going to work through some great strategies and tips around this for you all as well. So there's going to be a really juicy part of what's going on here. And number 5, this is a bit of a love for my area, considering that that tech and I are best friends. So tech that supports working virtually. So we can't have a discussion about online work if you're not talking about tech. So we're going to dig into the subject of tech in terms of the virtual workforce and what tech we recommend for supporting working virtually. So we've got lots to discuss. We've got great topics that are coming up in this, plenty of opportunities to ask questions. So please don't forget to write your questions in the chat in here. So Ingrid, shall we get into it?
Let's get into it. Okay, so let's talk about defining the industry. So it really did flourish, definitely thanks to COVID, I would say. So, you know, what we've seen is an industry now that's made up of predominantly virtual assistants, work from home, freelancers and contractors, and of course, the work from home employee workforce. So the industry really, I guess, got its wings and developed concurrently with the growth and ability to access the online or internet technology. That's no surprise to anyone. You can't be in the online space without having the ability to access the internet. So it flourished, absolutely, thanks to COVID. And the world finally understood that much of the administrative work that a lot of desk-based employees and contractors did could be actually done from anywhere. So the secret was exposed and there was no hiding it anymore. And a lot of people actually at that point got the opportunity to see the other side of the coin. They got to experience what it was like. Some loved it, some didn't love it so much. So, you know, and isn't that the way anyway? There's diversity in everything that we do. So it's interesting to see now that we have a lot of people who have come through and they've, you know, had that opportunity in their employed roles, and they've been told, get back to the office, and they've gone, actually, you know what, I could do this from home. I could actually create a business. And that's often what we see happening. So in terms of individual players, let's kind of define what we know, or the industry we know best, which is the virtual assistant part of the online industry. So a virtual assistant, you'll often hear them, that virtual assistant word abbreviated to VA. Also can be referred to as a virtual office assistant. They're generally, in Australia and New Zealand for that matter, generally self-employed. They provide professional, administrative, technical, creative or social support and assistance to their clients, a diversity of clients from their own home office. So, you know, and definitely that is part of the way we see Australian VAs getting set up. A lot of offshore VAs too. It's a worldwide industry without a doubt. You will find that it might be a bit different in other countries where offshore VAs or virtual team members or virtual employees, for example, they'll actually be employed by a company and be provided through a third party. And so while virtual freelancers and contractors are also part of this equation, they too work remotely, and they also provide all manner of services. So often more niched and specialised, I guess, whereas VAs can often be a little bit more generalised. But, you know, as with virtual assistants, their ability to provide these services always ever only going to be defined by what's accessible in the cloud. So we love the cloud. We love the big cloud up there. You know, I remember thinking that's just such a vague thing, but we all talk about the cloud now as if we know it. We first saw VAs emerge back in 1990. That seems like such a long time ago. And as Angela says, and I laugh my head off when she says this, remember the days of dial-up broadband? Well, I do. That noise, I was actually speaking at an event and I said, if anyone can make that dial-up noise, I'll give you a prize. And someone did. Someone actually stood up and made the noise. So they got a book. So yeah, we actually first saw the emergence of home-based secretarial services. So there you go. That's how the VA industry started back in the early days. predominantly in the US and Australia is where I've seen it come out of, but of course it could have been anywhere else in the world, but those are the people that I know the best. In the 2000s, we saw the VA industry really start to gather some momentum, and that's when I sort of stumbled upon the whole thing. It was very new back then. And of course, it was due to the growth in online technology and people's ability to access the internet. Most homes then started to have a computer in every home. There certainly weren't laptops in every home, but most homes had a computer. So they were able to access the internet throughout Australia and the world. In 2014 to 2019, as we saw the rollout in Australia of the NBN and faster internet became more and more accessible, we saw a lot of growth, driven mainly, I guess, from where I was sitting by the entrepreneurs and early adopters of technology who are actually setting that pace of working from anywhere. You think of co-working spaces in cities that started to become very common. Well, you know, we knew about them. We hadn't heard about them before. So yeah, it was one of those that growth started to really gather some momentum. So of course, you had to be under a rock if you didn't know what happened in 2020. And at that point, it was like a rocket, you know, in terms of the virtual world. So sharp increase in the need for and the use of virtual or home-based support staff. Everyone had to go online. And so if you didn't, I don't know, some people possibly didn't survive. Well, I know some people didn't survive, and it was a very difficult time. So we saw so many things go online. So we saw improved technology. A typical VA or freelancer and contractor in Australia and New Zealand will be a self-employed independent contractor, as I said. They definitely will be highly experienced with a background of at least 5 years employed in an admin-related field prior to setting up as a VA. They'll be professionally set up to work from their own home office using their own equipment to deliver their services. They'll be supporting a variety of clients, usually ongoingly as well. They will be also responsible for their own tax, super, and insurances. So it's something that you don't have to cover as a client. Employees, of course, that's a different kettle of fish, but you know, same deal. They'll have to be professionally set up to work from home. VAs, freelancers, and independent contractors understand the unique struggles and challenges that are part and parcel of running a business because, just like you, they're business owners themselves. So that's a little bit of an insight into the virtual industry. I'll let Angela take over on the next one.
Okay, so that was fantastic to know a little bit about the history and understanding about virtual assistants and also those virtual freelancers as well. So interesting enough, there's quite a lot out there that says, well, what can they actually do? Like, we kind of understand what they do, but we don't actually really understand what they can do. So what services does the virtual industry typically provide? So VAs and home-based independent contractors will provide an absolute patchwork of services, all defined by what they can provide in the online space. So I'm going to go through some of these for you, and this is not an exhaustive list by a long way, and we're seeing more and more things being added to this list on, you know, basically a daily basis. We see new things coming. Okay, so we've got things like virtual reception, which has been around for quite a while, and this is probably the most known one for being in that virtual world to start off with. And then grew a lot from in there. We've got customer service and client relationship services. General administration and EA services is very popular in the virtual world for sure. Website and IT services, this has always been thought to be out into the tech space, but never included under the virtual banner. But of course it is, because so much of this is all provided in the virtual space. And now there's so much more understanding that these services come underneath the virtual industry banner these days. We have graphic design, automation setups, CRM services, which is like my love language, online course creation and maintenance. We have book publishing, social media management that grew considerably from 2020 onwards and continues to still have a great growth pattern going on now. Digital marketing, Copywriting, we've got bookkeeping and accounting. Remember the days where you had to physically go to your accountant all the time? Those days are done. We don't have to do that anymore, no longer. We've got payroll, debt collection services, podcasting and video editing that was another one that had a big boost from 2020 as well. Blog posts, document transcriptions, document and template creation, PowerPoint presentations, event and travel management, because there's nothing that holds you back from that now either. Recruitment and HR is a very popular one that's on there. Online business management. You don't no longer have to sit in an office to do that online business management anymore. Operations and project management, and much, much, much more beyond that. So we've also got some industry specialties as well. So this will be places like legal. So we might have legal VAs, for example, medical and allied health. So this is a hugely growing area of in the medical and allied health space, where they are really starting to understand the benefits for having that virtual support in their businesses now. So there's a huge amount of growth happening there. IT services, as I've talked about before, now that they understand that they're underneath this banner, financial services, and even real estate and properties. So there's so many different areas that come in underneath this. And the best thing is that our research shows that most VAs and remote independent contractors will have on an average of 15 plus years experience as an administrative employee before starting their own VA business. So it's not like people are out there and just saying, oh, I think that I might start this today and I don't have any skills. They're bringing these amazing solid skills of, over a decade of skills to come into this space. So why they might be new businesses, they're not new skills that are happening here. Okay, Ingrid, do you want to talk a little bit about the money side of things?
That's the thing. It's always the bottom line, isn't it? What will these sort of services cost me? And as a business owner, of course, you need to understand how much you can expect to pay. And we see that question asked many, many times. So in Australia, which is predominantly where we're working, our industry research, and we've done a lot of it, shows that VAs charge on average between $40 and $60 per hour for general. And I want to just exaggerate that a little bit, pronounce that, is general administrative tasks. Highly specialised or niche services, which can sort of fall into that consultancy bucket, will often be at a higher hourly rate. So just be aware of that. But we say on average between $40 and $60 per hour for general administrative tasks. We actually, though, want you to start to think about how VAs provide their services in terms of outcomes over hours. We're so institutionalized that we think about, how are we going to pay for something by an hourly rate. So hours are so very subjective. What I can do in 10 minutes might take the next person an hour to do. So what you want to do, and we'll get to how to find the right VA or virtual team member later, but, I urge you to start to think about the actual skills that the particular person has. So where their value lies is in their background and their zones of genius. So really important, and I guess it opens that whole, it changes the way we think about those things. And I know that, for our clients, sometimes it's great actually to have that understanding of the value that your VAs can bring rather than focusing in on an hourly rate. So, that's just a word of advice. And I will say, Ange and I do have a team of VAs around us as well who we engage. And so we have had a long, hard look at how this all works. And there's different ways that VAs can charge. And we certainly, we really advocate outcomes-based packages for our team, and we think it's a great way for VAs to charge where your clients know exactly what you're going to do and what you're going to charge. So it's an agreed fee for agreed services, which is generally paid in arrears, by the way. You're not paying in advance. There are other ways that VAs do charge, though, of course. When you're working with someone and you actually don't know how long that piece of string is, an hourly rate is a great way to work too. So, VAs can charge to the minute, really. They can track their time and provide you with a timesheet. and invoice you based on their hourly rate. They can also charge you a retainer, so a block of hours that's generally paid in advance, often with an expiry date. So be aware of that. You know, sometimes that might be a great idea, but sometimes not. So consider the different ways that VAs can charge, and don't be afraid to ask for a different way. If you're looking at working with someone, ask them how they can charge you. Is there a different offer there? So, you know, definitely it's one of those things that, like I said, it's very subjective, but it's good to know. It's good to have a little bit of a ballpark for what Australian and New Zealand VAs will generally charge. Okay, so let's move on to the next part.
Okay, Ingrid, I think you can do this one.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I know you like talking about it, so I'm going to let you talk all about the virtual advantage.
It is. I did coin this phrase, actually, the virtual advantage, so thank you. I really do think that's important to understand why businesses the world over use the services of people who are, you know, in the online space and working remotely. And in particular, why do they love their VAs and their work from home independent contractors? That's a good question. And if you've never ever used a VA or an independent remote work from home contractor, perhaps you don't know. So the first and the biggest thing that I will always say is that they are able to be extremely scalable. So that means that they can scale up when your business grows and the needs dictate, but likewise, they can scale back if your business slows down. So that's one of the benefits of engaging an independent contractor over an employee. And of course, we saw that play out in real life in 3D during the initial stages of COVID and that work from home thing that started to happen, and businesses just went, you know, into free fall. They didn't know what they were going to do. VAs who were engaged at that point with their clients were able to scale back and, you know, scale right back sometimes, and then pick it back up when the business started to be able to trade again. So the other thing too, you know, with that scalability comes this flexible nature of being able to work slightly or definitely different to a lot of employees. We can work flexible hours. So oftentimes, you know, you'll see VAs who are able to work late at night. We've got a team member who's Australian based, I might add, and she does a lot of her work, I think after 10, doesn't she, Ange? It's like,
yeah, generally between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. is her magic time to do all her work, and that's because when it's quiet and when she can focus best, and it doesn't matter. That's completely okay for her to do that.
And likewise, you know, I often had clients who would have emergencies happen when they were traveling, let's say, and traveling is not always between 9 to 5, right? So when disasters happen, you want someone there. So I could always pick up and sort things out, organize transfers, book them into different hotels, rearrange their flights, that kind of thing. So that flexibility is one of those things that is a huge advantage when you're coming to think about working with someone who's in the virtual space and running their own business from home. They're also able to provide flexibility in terms of their services, because a lot of virtual assistants and independent contractors will have exposure to a lot of different skills. Maybe you brought them on to do one particular thing, but perhaps they actually have more flexibility in terms of what they can offer, and they can increase their scope of services. So that's huge as well. So, you know, you're able to take advantage of that often. The next point is that they're really, really well connected. And not surprisingly, you know, the industry is very well connected in the online world. So what does that do for clients? It actually gives them the ability to source additional resources through the networks that we all have access to, meaning that if your VA can't do it or your virtual team member can't do it, they will often know someone else who can. So that's going to save you time, like downtime, and that stress of trying to find people. You're actually going to have someone who is recommended to you and can actually do the work. So most, hopefully all of them, will be professionally set up with good equipment, great internet connection. Absolutely, you can't live without it. And they'll run a professional and legal business entity that also includes insurances, really solid cyber security policies and practices that support that, and contracts that are designed to serve both the client and the contractor. So, you know, it'll cover off things like that superannuation question that we often hear raised. If you've got the right contract in place, then that's never going to be an issue. Because VAs and work from home independent contractors are generally business owners themselves, they have their clients' best interests at heart. And I think that's a really important point. It's really important to them then that their client is happy. So they've got their client's best interests definitely at heart. So location also, obviously, no brainer there, is not an issue, which means that all of a sudden you're able to hire based on skill level and not necessarily where the person's located. It's a game changer for regional businesses, I have to say, because no longer are they bound by the geographical confines of where they can find their team. So, you know, they are actually able to access resources from anywhere. So it really is a game changer. And cost saving. So definitely cost saving over traditional business employee models. And clients who utilise the services of virtual assistants and independent contractors can save, we've seen the evidence, they can save on average 50% of the staff overheads, wages, costs, because they're simply charging, the VAs and the team members are charging for the time spent on the work rather than for every minute that you actually have engaged them. So it's a huge difference. And yeah, absolutely, we can see the cost saving is a really big deal, even though on the surface you might not believe that, but you know, it is one of those things that we see repeated again and again.
Okay, so let's go and have a look at the traits of a superstar VA and contractors. So the very first thing is that they're going to be great communicators, as you would expect that they are. So very well to communicate everything that's needed in order to establish expectations and boundaries and to provide a service that's going to exceed the expectations, because it's always the goal here. So communication is really the alpha and the omega of any superstar VA. Communication, communication, communication. We talk about this all the time. The next thing is that they will know exactly what they do best and they will stick to it, stick to their zone of genius. And so we don't really have a great deal of people working in this space that are the unicorns in the space. We really want them to really understand what they do very well. And they'll be able to connect you with other VAs who can provide the services that they can't deliver. We've got a phenomenal industry that's very collaborative. So this is exactly what we see happen here. They're also going to have a high attention to detail. So they're going to be focused on doing it right the first times. This is minimizing all that need to micromanage them. So really being able to use those 15 plus years experience, because you know that that's what they've got already there in the background, so they can hit the ground running. They'll have honesty and integrity. The best VAs and freelancers, the virtual freelancers, will be transparent and they'll carry themselves in their business with integrity. They're going to be someone that you can count on to do the right thing. And here's a very big one. They're going to be solution focused. They're going to be proactive. Rather than delivering a whole stack of problems, the best VAs, the best virtual providers is going to come with a solution ready to implement for you already. They're going to be focused on these client outcomes, and they're going to be accessible, easy to find, responsive, and proactive. So I think that's a pretty good list of someone that we want to have working in the virtual space.
Absolutely. So you might be really inspired now and starting to think about, oh, okay, I think this sounds good. I could actually get out there and try and look for my own VA. Fantastic, but we want to give you some tips. So just whoa up. So we want to give you some top tips for finding and onboarding your new virtual team member. So the first thing that you want to be doing is getting really organized. So knowing exactly what the description of the role is. So clarifying it. How is it going to fit within your business? Absolutely think about writing a position description, much like you would in any traditional job role. Because the VA or the contractor is actually going to need that information. They're not mind readers, they're not magicians. Just because they're in the online space doesn't mean that they can actually perform miracles. You need to guide them and give them the right information, that's for sure. So The next thing that we would encourage you to do is start to think about the sort of software that you're using within your own business and list out what is an absolute must that your contractor or virtual assistant needs to have experience with. You know, make sure you know what's going to be a deal breaker in terms of what they don't know about. Think about the software that you'd be happy to train them in as well. So is there something that, oh, you know, you could actually provide a little bit of training? If they've got a little bit of knowledge, that's fine. So think about those things because it is really important. I know when we have people come through our Find a VA resource, even the other day, I had someone say to me, look, I don't really want to be training anyone. I just want them to be able to do it. So it's important to be able to verbalize that that's your expectation. So really, I guess, too, in terms of software, and Angie's going to go into a little bit more detail about that, a lot of the software we have today is really, really user-friendly too. So it's often quite easy to pick it up and run with it. And, you know, if you're talking about, you know, software in the same genre, for example, accounting software or, you know, scheduling software, it'll often be really similar to other platforms. So if it's an obscure in-house software platform, then definitely be prepared to do some training, I would say. So other things to think about is identifying specific hours that you might need covered if relevant. So really important to have that clear so there's no surprises. Definitely identify outcomes and deliverables and specify timeframes. You know, there's nothing worse than having an expectation but not having verbalized it, and so therefore there's an issue. Definitely talk about communication protocols. Really, really important to talk about the standard scenarios, but also what's going to happen in an emergency. And any other sort of vague requirements of the role. Make sure you kind of remember that the remote team member is only ever going to be as good as the information you feed them. So definitely know where you're going to begin your search. We see a lot of people who post really vague requests. I don't know if you've seen it, but I have, in different Facebook groups. I want a VA. They'll get like 100 responses. Pick me, pick me, pick me. You've just created yourself a whole world of pain in having to sift through all those various VAs, and are they the real deal? You know, can you trust them? So how do you pick? That's why we definitely recommend going and checking out Find a VA, where you know that there's quality certified and insured and professionally set up VAs, and you can sort of rest assured that that part of it is taken care of, and you deal directly with them too, of course. So it's a very simple process. Definitely go and head over to our website, findava.com, and you'll see, you know, exactly how to submit a work request. Really straightforward.
Sorry,
Okay.
we've just got a quick question here, Ingrid, about whether your organisation is able to help clarifying the actual role of the VA for a prospective client.
Yes, so I'll pick up the phone and call everyone who sends through some sort of a submission of what they're looking for, and we'll talk through if they say call me, I'll definitely do that, but I'll do it anyway, so we can help you by, you know, getting things sorted. Sometimes people will send through something where we know that it's not possible for one person to handle that role too, so we'll actually have a little bit of a chat and talk about how it can be done. So yeah, definitely. Does that answer the question? Yeah, hopefully it does. Okay, Ange, over to you.
Okay, so the next part of this is about hiring and onboarding tips and what you want to be looking out for. So it is important. So thanks, Anna. We can see that you're saying yes, that answered the question there. So it's important to do your due diligence when engaging a virtual team member. So when comparing VAs, you're going to be looking out for some of these things. So the first thing is they need to be set up professionally and legally. We're talking about things like, do they have a business name? Do they have a domain name? This is going to show that they are serious about their business, and it is, in fact, a business, and it's not a hobby, because we don't want to get stuck with that they're going to come and help you for a little minute and then decide to go and chase another hobby as well. So always good to make sure they're professionally set up. Check out their website as a way to clarify their service offerings. Does it match, or are they telling you that they can do something that they haven't got written anywhere else? So if so, beware. Now, I like to joke and say that we should appropriately stalk them online, because inappropriate stalking is obviously inappropriate. So we appropriately stalk them on social media to give you a bit more background intel on what type of person and business they are. Connect with them on LinkedIn, review their recommendations, look for regular activities on their Facebook or their Instagram page. And are they talking about, again, as we talked about, does their things that they're talking about match what they're trying to offer you as well? So it's this same circle of checking, doing your due diligence. We want to make sure that their communication is clear and professional. Remember that they will be representing you and your business, so you want it to be a good fit for you. If they are going to be making calls on your behalf, you should jump on the phone with them and see what their phone manner is like. If emailing is a major part of their role, then check their email etiquette, their spelling, their grammar, their tone of voice that's coming in there. Communication should be polished and up to scratch. These are the front people to your business. You want to make sure that they're putting across exactly the same things that you would be putting across in your business as well.
Yeah.
So insurance, this is very important. So we advocate that all VAs and remote contractors, being business owners themselves, should carry at least professional indemnity or a country equivalent and of this insurance, so professional indemnity insurance or country equivalent. Other insurances that are often relevant are things like public liability and cyber insurance. Now, that's going to be different for an employee, of course, if you're going to have someone in there, but we're talking specifically here about VAs and remote contractors. So the next one will be things like affiliations. Go and check out where and who they are affiliated with and which groups they are part of in the online world. For example, many professional VAs will be a member of the industry association, or they'll be connected to organisations such as the VA Institute or Find a VA, and those that advocate for excellence in the industry, to make sure that you're getting a quality VA or a quality virtual work from home. Okay, you should always interview. You should never hire over email or messages. This is just a recipe for disaster. Your potential team member will also want to get to know you, and remember, they're a business too. So most importantly, you will get a sense of whether you're both an ideal fit, and it's actually okay to not be an ideal fit as well. Just because you've been on the interview with them doesn't mean that you have to have them. You've got to have the right person for your business. Sometimes you are just going to get that gut feeling that this person is the right person. So trust that instinct as you go. Here's some other things that we'd also like you to think about and clarify as you are looking at this hiring and onboarding. Think about billing and payments. As we've discussed, so VAs and contractors are good at what they do, and they're going to understand the value they can provide you or your business. So before you get started, make sure you have identified and understood how much and how often your VA will be invoicing you. We don't like bill shocks, so we all want to make sure that we absolutely understand when we're going to be invoiced. And the next one's paperwork. If you're engaging the services of a professionally set up virtual independent contractor, they will have legally correct service agreements for you to sign. This will cover their rights as an independent contractor as relating to the law. It's going to protect both you and the service provider. Often clients will ask contractors to sign an NDA as well if there is information that they need to protect. So don't be afraid to do that. That's completely okay to have an NDA signed. So the next one's location. Whilst it can be tempting to try and find a VA who lives local to you, our experience showed that that's absolutely going to limit your ability to find the right person. There is no need to severely limit yourself in that way. Instead, we encourage businesses who are looking for VAs to focus on the specific support that is required and choose a candidate who is able to demonstrate that they are competent in that area rather than being limited to living in the next town over. Okay. So finally, be aware, and I mentioned this briefly beforehand, be aware that you will rarely find a unicorn virtual team member. mini look, but it is something that can lead to big disappointment. Just like you are not able to do anything, neither will your VA or remote contractor. They're going to be skilled in some areas and not so in others. So it is okay to have more than one VA or more than one remote contractor to fill a position, so you can make sure that you have the skills in each area that you need. So remember that saying, jack of all trades, master of none. Well, this applies in this situation for sure. So VAs and contractors are human. They're not robots. So they need to be treated like humans and onboard them with kindness and consideration. So we've already had, Kirsten's already shared the download already, but we do have one here for you. It's a free download that you can access. It's called 12 Steps for Finding, Hiring and Thriving with Virtual Assistants. So make sure you grab your copy of that. It is definitely worth a read. There's lots of juicy information in there. Now, Ingrid's got something really good to share. This is a great one on the next one. Let's talk about offshore versus onshore.
Okay, so it's often a question that's raised. A lot of the time we'll see it in social media groups. Sometimes we're asked it face to face, but whilst we absolutely acknowledge, that just we work in a global industry and everyone has the right to work, we also want to point out the advantages that come with working with someone who's located onshore. So that can be an Australian with an Australian business. It could be a US-based business with a US-based employee or contractor. You know, we're talking about onshore as compared to your business. So having been in the industry for many, many years, we definitely believe that local VAs, whether you're based in Australia, New Zealand or anywhere, we wanted at this point to highlight the benefits definitely of using onshore service providers in particular situations, not every situation, okay, particular situations, and this is why. Most of the time too, I will say, all we hear about is pricing, but the reality is that really the service goes way deeper than money. So in Australia, at least, we understand that it is extremely attractive, absolutely, to engage the services of cheaper offshore service providers. But there are definitely things that we want you to consider and know ahead of time when making that decision, especially if we're considering client-facing team members. So this is the instance that I specifically want to talk about. So number one is business culture. So your onshore VA or virtual team member has generally worked for years providing similar services, and understands in minute detail the business culture that you are operating in and that they've had experience in. They can speak to your customers and be extremely relevant. They can talk about the weather and the floods and the fires and all sorts of things. So, you know, we know that that's true. So language too, as we know, can be a barrier. Well, I can't imagine how hard it would be for people who have English as a second language trying to pick up the unique Aussie strine that we have to deal with. So, you know, that is absolutely one of those things that, you know, we think onshore is very valuable for. I had a client once who had me checking work that he had sent off to an offshore person who was doing his dictation, so his transcription services. In the middle of his dictation, his dog had jumped up on his table or something and he yelled, "Get down, Pepper." So funnily enough, "Get down, Pepper" was part of the transcription. And so it's one of those things where we know that people don't understand the nuances, like what was he talking about? Okay, you know, they got it all, but it wasn't actually quite right. Legalities, of course, we've talked about that, you know, making sure that you have everything covered off and a contract will work if you're working with someone onshore. Most onshore VAs here in Australia will carry at least, as we said, insurance, so at least professional indemnity, and it will often extend to public liability and cyber, which we know is so important. Generally, not always, but generally, Australia is a big country. An offshore service provider will, an onshore service provider will operate in the same time zone. So it's much easier to get in touch with them during the hours that you're working. And contrary to what you might believe, And as I actually said before, a lot of offshore VAs will be employed by a larger company who actually take a big cut. Whereas in Australia and New Zealand, you're dealing directly with a business owner. So there's someone who's absolutely invested in keeping you as a client, right? So it's one of those things that's worth considering. It's also worth you thinking about where is your information going to be stored if it's being sent offshore. So who's got access to sensitive information? Is it safe and is it protected? So that's just there's a few of the considerations that we wanted to raise.
Okay, so my love language, here we go. Tech that supports working virtually. Okay, so operating successful with a virtual assistant or a virtual team is going to require your business to be accessible online. So by running your business from software platforms that are cloud-based, this creates an ease of protocol for you as the business owner to provide your relevant access to your VA. Got to say that working on the cloud is so much easier than working from dial-up back in the day. Okay, so here's some key elements that you'll need to consider when bringing on your VA teams. The first one is time tracking. If you are contracting your VA on an hourly basis rather than outcomes based, then time tracking is relevant in this circumstance. So more often than not, a VA will already have their time tracking software such as Toggle or My Hours, and they're going to provide you a summary report with their invoice. The next one's email platforms. So if your VA is coming on board and going to be managing your emails for you, or you wish for them to speak for your customers and clients on the business's behalf, then it's going to be important to provide them correct access from the start. This will ensure that they can complete their tasks easily. So you're going to be setting them up for success right from the start. If your emails are hosted with common providers such as Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, then this is going to be really easy for you to go and do. You're going to be able to give them delegated access to your emails, and they're going to be straight into managing those emails for you and being able to connect with those clients directly. So setting them up with an email directly under your organization, this is going to ensure a professional front to your clients, along with ensuring the data control of information is going to stay within your organization, which is really important. Bit about project management. So many businesses may already have project management software in place, things such as Monday.com, Asana, Trello. Consider how you're going to implement your VA into the software and the amount or level of access that they require. So what we want to do is make sure that we're in this project management, that when we're giving them access, give them access by that magic email that you created them at the start. And that way you have control over the amount of access that's going to happen there and what they need to have access and what they don't need to have access to. Okay, so when we go to CRMs, this is going to be really similar to the project management software. So most CRMs are now cloud-based, such as Monday.com, Zoho, HubSpot, and there's so many other ones that are out there. So by providing your VA access to the relevant places within your CRM via that same organizational email address that we talked about, you've provided them the correct access into the areas into your business easily, so they are able to complete the required tasks that are going to be allocated. So a CRM is a customer relationship manager. So it's places where you will keep all the information about any leads coming through or clients coming through, being able to understand the whole story that comes with them. And there's a little bit of a changeover that goes between, say, CRMs and project management software tools. So they will be there together. Great question. Okay, so accounting software. So after major changes and growth we've seen in technology, it's now clear that the option to have support provided virtually is fast becoming the preference when it comes to accounting. So this also includes getting all the support from bookkeepers and accountants for all of those business financials. Nowadays, the majority of accounting packages like Xero, Rounded, MYOB, they're all completely online. You simply provide access to your virtual bookkeeper via the user access in the settings, and immediately they'll have access to complete the tasks that they need. So now there is even inclusions of integrations of programs like HubDoc to Xero. And this is where you can upload a photo of a receipt directly to the HubDoc, which is fantastic for busy business owners. So or they can just forward an email with an invoice attached into HubDoc. And if you are doing this area for them, your virtual person's doing this area for you, it'll just be sitting there waiting for your virtual support team to be able to fix this for you. The next one is file storage. So it's common for businesses who have been running for a period of time to have file storage spread everywhere. They may have it in their physical filing cabinets, some physically on their computer, some in the cloud, and like places like OneDrive, Google Drive, and Dropbox, etc. So to set up your VA to succeed in your business, ideally you want to have your relevant business files within the cloud storage, OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, those kind of areas. Once you do, it's really easy to be able to provide your VA access to the relevant files and folders. So by simply just clicking share on the file and folder that's in there, and giving access to that organizational email address that you've already provided your virtual support person already, and they're going to have access to what you need. But if they're going to work virtually, they can't magically come and pull something out of your physical filing cabinet. So we need to think about having that online. And the last one in here is about security, and this is a big one. How do you know that the business information and data your VA requires access to will be secure? It's actually easier than you think. So firstly, if you have provided your virtual support contractor with that organizational email account that we talked about at the start, your email hosting platform is cloud-based, Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace, and then all your business data will stay safely within your business organization as it is on your business cloud platform. We also recommend that you implement a password storage manager in your business if you haven't already, something like Dashlane or LastPass. There's lots out there. Do your due diligence to learn about them. And this provides a secure way to share passwords and even credit card details if required with your virtual contractor. And lastly, talk to your VA about your business expectations for virus and spyware protection on their devices. Quality VAs would already have software like this in place, and you need to include how often they should be scanning for things like viruses and spyware. Have that expectation in place. The bottom line is that using cloud-based software and providing relevant access to your VA is going to set you both up for success when it comes to technology. So it's so vital. Okay, that's technology. I could talk about it all day.
And basically that's it. I'm so sorry, we've actually taken it to the full hour, but there's some links there if you want to get in touch with us. Find a VA, you can go there to find a virtual assistant, or VA Institute. You can certainly submit an inquiry or contact us through there as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for your attention, and I hope that this is something that opened your eyes a little bit to what's out there.
So thank you both to Ingrid and Angela. Lots of really good, intelligent information on what you should be doing when you're looking for a virtual assistant or a virtual contractor. But even if you're a VA, there's just such a wealth of knowledge and information there on, what a professional VA looks like. And if they haven't actually got all of these elements, this is sort of a bit of a one-stop shop to sort of get the rest of that all up and running for themselves. So thank you both for your time today. Hopefully over on the chat, we've got a bit.ly link, so that resource that both Ingrid and Angela talked about is available. If not, reach out to either Ingrid or Angela if you have any questions. But thank you everybody for coming along. The recording will be made available through our YouTube channel within the next week. Other than that, thank you everybody for attending, and we hope you've gotten some great information out of today's session. Thank you very much.